All right, let's set the stage for a real clash of the titans, an intellectual duel between two of the most influential economic thinkers in history, Adam Smith and Karl Marx. Now, their ideas didn't just stay in old books. They literally shaped nations, sparked revolutions, and they still define the world we argue about every single day.
You see, both of them were wrestling with the same huge, fundamental question. How should society actually work? But their answers, well, they couldn't be more night and day. And that's the core of the clash we're going to break down right now.
So in one corner, you've got Adam Smith. His masterpiece, The Wealth of Nations, basically wrote the playbook for modern capitalism. And in the other corner, Karl Marx, who, along with Friedrich Engels, dropped the Communist Manifesto on the world, a pamphlet that would completely upend the 20th century. So we've got two thinkers, two legendary books, and two completely different visions for humanity.
Okay, let's get right to it. Ding, ding, ding. Round one is all about human nature. What is the fundamental force that really pushes society forward? Is it all about individual ambition, or is it something much bigger, a great historical conflict?
For Adam Smith, the answer was pretty clear. It's all about self-interest. Now hold on, that sounds kind of greedy, right? But for Smith, it wasn't about being selfish, it was more about the basic, rational drive we all have to improve our own lives. And he saw that drive as this incredibly powerful and predictable engine that makes the whole economy go. And this is where he gives us one of his most famous examples. He said, look, the butcher isn't cutting your steak out of the goodness of his heart. He's doing it to earn a living. And you're not paying him to be his friend, you're paying him to get your dinner. It's this simple, elegant transaction based on mutual self-interest that he thought made the whole system work so beautifully. And all of this leads to his most famous idea of all, the invisible hand. The theory goes like this. When millions of us are all out there just trying to do what's best for ourselves, we accidentally end up making things better for everyone else. It's as if some unseen force guides all our individual actions to create a good outcome for society. You know, more innovation, better products, and just more wealth for everybody. Okay, so that's Smith's view. Now Marx comes along, takes a look at this whole invisible hand idea, and basically says, nope, you've got it all wrong. For Marx, the real story of history has nothing to do with individual ambition. It's about a massive, ongoing, and often brutal fight between social classes.
I mean, this is the explosive opening line of the manifesto, and it's the bedrock of his entire worldview. For Marx, if you look at any society at any point in history, it's always been split into two basic groups, the haves and the have-nots, the oppressor and the oppressed.
And he saw this pattern just repeating itself. In ancient Rome, it was freeman versus slave. In the Middle Ages, you had lord versus serf. And in his own time, seeing the harsh reality of the Industrial Revolution, he argued the conflict had boiled down to two great opposing camps. The bourgeoisie, that's the owners of the factories and all the capital, and the proletariat, the industrial workers who have nothing to sell but their own labor. So, with those two totally opposing views on what makes us tick, let's head into round two, the economic engine itself. How does the market actually work? Is it a brilliant, self-regulating machine, or is it just fundamentally broken?
Smith was a huge believer in the power of free competition. His argument was pretty simple. When businesses have to compete against each other for your money, they are forced to offer better stuff at lower prices. In his mind, competition is the consumer's absolute best friend.
Smith really laid it out clearly. He said free competition pushes prices down to their natural level, which is basically the lowest sustainable price you can get. A monopoly, on the other hand, can charge the absolute highest price the market will possibly bear. So for Smith, the choice was a no-brainer. Competition means things are efficient and fair.
But Marx, again, comes back with a powerful counterpunch. He looks at Smith's competitive system and doesn't see fairness at all. He sees chaos and destruction. He argues that capitalism is inherently unstable and is actually designed to create vast, crippling inequality.
And he breaks down why. First, he says competition isn't some friendly game. It's a brutal fight that creates a few huge winners and tons of losers. And ironically, he argued that this intense competition would eventually lead to monopolies, as the big companies just swallow up the smaller ones. He also pointed to the total lack of planning, which he said causes these wild swings of boom and bust, inflation, depression, the whole shebang.
So all of this brings us to our final round, the referee. What should the government do about all this? Should it get involved in the economy, or should it stay on the sidelines?
And right here is where we find their most famous and lasting disagreement. Smith is the ultimate champion of hands-off. He argued for what he called the most perfect freedom of trade, believing the market just works best when you leave it alone. Marx is the total opposite. He's all hands-on, arguing for the government on behalf of the workers to take complete control through centralized planning and fix the flaws of capitalism by force.
So, after 3 rounds, what's the big takeaway? Well, we're left with 2 powerful, completely opposed visions for how to run a society. And the wild thing is, their ideas are still at the very heart of our political and economic debates today.
Let's just recap this clash real quick. For Smith, the engine of society is individual gain, the market is guided by an invisible hand, the main goal is to benefit the consumer, and the government should have a very limited role. For Marx, the engine is class struggle, the market needs central planning, the goal is a revolution of the proletariat, and the government should have total control.
You know, these words were written centuries ago, but this debate is anything but ancient history. The tension between individual freedom and the collective good, between free markets and government intervention, well, that's still the central economic question of our time. So the final question really is for you. As you look at the world right now, which of these 2 powerful visions do you see shaping it the most?